we've got about 400 people signed up to this session, and that's really exciting in itself. But I can confidently say that if we did the session 6 months ago and we called it Everything You Want to Know About Generative, I've got to read it, Generative Retrained Transformers, we'd have got a slightly lower attendance. And the delta, the difference, is completely down to one person and his team, and he's on the call today. My name's Colin McElwee. I'm the co-founder of an organization called Worldreader. We're a not-for-profit. We get reading, everybody on the planet reading in the global south and then parts of the global north. We're always looking for partnerships, so people that need our digital solutions, please approach me. I'm also one of the founding members of the host organization for today, which is Catalyst 2030. We were about 20 organizations when we came together 4 years ago. We've just passed the 2,000 organization moment. So that's been really big, and that's enormous growth. Okay, if I said to you Netflix took 10 years to go past the 100 million users, monthly users mark. Twitter took 5 years to get to 100 million. I think Facebook, 4.5 years. Instagram, 2.5. TikTok, 9 months. Well, in January this year, ChatGPT passed that 100 million mark after 2 months in the market, essentially. But we're not here just to talk about scale. We're here to talk about the impact of these technologies for all of us as individuals, for our families, for our businesses, for our children, for our children's children. There's a real before and after moment here. We've all read a lot about ChatGPT over the last 6 weeks, 2 months. But a lot of that's been generated in the global north, for the global north, about the global north. There's been a real, as far as what we've seen, a marginalization of real deep dive analysis about what these technologies mean for the global south. So this session is all about beginning to put that right. We've got a great session lined up for you, fireside format, 2 incredible, intelligent, great people, and I'll introduce them to you. Lindiwe. Lindiwe is from South Africa. I think, Lindiwe, you're based in Johannesburg. You're the CEO of Africa Teen Geeks. You got a great appreciation of where tech rubber meets the road with people and users right across Africa, and your energy and your enthusiasm is going to be really, really welcome. Chris Capossela, a longtime friend of Worldreader, on our board and as board president, as our ultimate leader there. He is the executive vice president of Microsoft Corporation. He's also the chief marketing officer of the same. And Chris, I just saw on Monday, congratulations. I saw you were ordained, isn't the word, but you were invited into the Hall of Fame of marketeers. So tremendous congratulations for that. I'll just say 2 things about Chris before I hand over, is that last time I saw you, Chris, I think we were in Kenya, we were in Nairobi, we were around a number of schools looking at the application of technology, what was working and what not, what working so well in schools around Nairobi, including Worldreader technology and what could be made better. And I found that you are a person full of intelligence, full of insight, but really full of care for how technology is interacted with and engaged with right across the globe, but especially in the global south. And then the last thing I'll say is Chris almost wasn't with us today. 24 hours ago, actually, it's not in the past, he's still full with a very, very heavy cold. So I don't know what you're taking, Chris. It must be herbs dropped with some whiskey or something in there. Just to say, enormous gratitude for you being here today. Lindiwe, take it away.
Thank you so much. I think with everybody else, I think everybody can just echo with me that we are really, really excited and humbled to have you, Chris, to join us, especially under the circumstances. It also talks about that, about the kind of person that you are as a leader, honoring us, even when you have a very good reason not to be here. So, but we are so grateful. I am so excited. I mean, Colin would tell you, as soon as he told me that, I was, and said, would you do this? I was like, of course. I mean, are you even asking me? I'm really, really honored. We are so honored to have you today.
Thank you so much. It's really a privilege, to be honest. I was so looking forward to this. And when I was feeling under the weather yesterday, I thought, oh no, am I going to miss out on the thing I've been looking forward to? So thank you for all the work that you've done, Lindiwe. It's super impressive, your organization. And Colin, obviously, thanks for your continued work at Worldreader. I'm honored to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, I was looking at your CV and I was like, oh my God. And your career has been so amazing and so inspiring, obviously, and congratulations with your award again. I just want to ask you, how has your understanding of the technology industry changed or evolved over time for all this time that you spent at Microsoft? And how do you see AI playing a role in its future?
Well, one of the things I love about tech is that it's the people who build it, of course, want it to be used everywhere. It's very much a global industry. It's people who invent things, whether it's inventing the PC or inventing an important product, they want it to be used sort of all around the world. And I've seen that kind of global impact that Microsoft has been able to have over the 40 so years that the company has existed. And I love that about the company. I love that about high tech. I sort of got to have a front row seat to the PC becoming a very mainstream device. And it was a radical idea that all of us might have a personal computer in our home or a phone in our pocket that was as powerful as a personal computer. It wasn't that long ago where that was considered a joke, that was considered impossible. And why would anyone want one of those things? And so for me, it's always really fun to see a new thing like the PC, like a smartphone, even the internet, sort of being invented and people starting to figure out how can we use these things to make society a better place. And that's where I kind of feel like we finally are with artificial intelligence, specifically this notion of generative AI, which is where ChatGPT kind of, the space that ChatGPT kind of lives. And so it's so exciting to be at Microsoft every day and to start to see, oh, the world is waking up to the possibilities and some of the dangers and risks of this new technology. Lindiwe, back in 2019, Microsoft started partnering with this company called OpenAI, which was an unknown, 200-person company. And it hasn't been until 2023, really, where they were able to bring ChatGPT to the world through their website, that people started to see, wow, this is really quite different than anything we've ever seen before. We were very lucky to have seen it pretty early on and to make a bet with them and to hopefully help them develop and test and responsibly scale their AI tech. And now, of course, Microsoft is building on top of their technology, and we've built their technology into Bing, which is our search engine, into our browser, which is called Microsoft Edge, into GitHub, which is a tool that lots of software developers use. We've built it into our Azure cloud services. So we are all in when it comes to betting on AI. We're pivoting the entire company, and we're treating this as if it was as important as the internet. We think it's that foundational, a change of the technology platform. And we're excited to try to figure out how to bring it to every industry, including education, which I think we're going to talk about a lot today, and to every country. And of course, all of the countries in the global south. So Oh boy, you could tell, even though I'm not feeling my finest, I'm very excited about where we are today.
No, I mean, that's exciting. Every time I envy you, actually, if I think about how, you going into work with people who build things, who make things. I always say it's like, the prophets of industry, so to speak, for a lack of a better word, for being able to see, and seeing these people that have the vision and to make it possible for all of us. And so, I mean, Microsoft has, you already spoke about this, that they've made a lot of investment in AI and machine learning technologies. How do you see this technology transforming education industry? I am in the education sector, so I'm very passionate about education, especially for the disadvantaged kids who may not have the privilege, that you and I, our kids, you would have, of meeting amazing people that can inspire them to start seeing, the potential. So how do you really see AI in education, specifically in developing countries where there's also a lot of barriers, right? Lack of internet access, lack of infrastructure, there's so many lack-ofs. How do you see Microsoft, supporting them?
It's such a big question. I think, my boss is the CEO of Microsoft, a guy named Satya Nadella, and he said to a small group of us last week something that really stuck in my mind. He said, imagine a world where all 8 billion people on the planet have access to a fantastic educator just through the mobile phone that they use, or just through whatever device they might have. And I know a lot of organizations on this call, including Worldreader, have done very creative work to get technology into the hands of people who may not have had access to it before. So the technology is one aspect, but the importance of nonprofit organizations, public and private partnerships, working with ministries of education around the world, those things still have to happen in order for this to take off. We fundamentally believe, of course, that AI has the possibility of amplifying what everybody can do and empowering people to do new things. And education is one of my favorite examples. Healthcare would probably be my second industry that I think it could be the most transformative for. But this notion that AI is going to influence every single industry and every single company, whether it's for profit or not, every government entity. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing. And yet we feel like there is this enormous opportunity to make progress, literally delivering on the UN SDGs. It's not like someone could just invent a piece of technology and everything is solved. But as Colin said, it took 60 days to get to 100 million people using ChatGPT for free. There's no, they have a pay-for version, of course, but making this technology available to everybody, anybody who has a device connected to the internet, is really amazing. And that's where Microsoft says, wow, if we do this right, if we build the right technology, if we build the platform that other companies like Worldreader can build on top of, then everybody who needs an education on the planet is going to have access to it directly from themselves to an educator in their pocket, an educator on their PC. And it's not going to take the place of schools, of course. But when I see what Khan Academy has already done to take OpenAI's technology, take ChatGPT, and build into essentially a tutor that'll help you do math in a way that transforms the way Khan Academy works, you start to realize, oh, I see. The way this is going to come to life is people like Khan Academy, people like Worldreader, people like your organization, they're the ones who are going to figure out how to harness this tech. They're the ones that are going to figure out how to make it relevant. It isn't just OpenAI and the ChatGPT tech. That's just the foundation. That's just like the connectivity of the internet. When the internet was invented, nobody said, oh, I know. every government is now going to be able to put forums on their website so every citizen can interact with the government 24/7. Like that wasn't, nobody immediately had that light bulb go off. When the iPhone was invented, nobody immediately said, oh my gosh, ride sharing applications. I got to build Uber and Lyft. Like it took time for those organizations to realize, oh my gosh, this is far more transformative than I thought. And I think that's where we are right now. We can see the platform, Lindiwe, but we can't quite see all of the applications that will be as transformative as we will in just 6 months from today. And when I saw Khan Academy, I was like, the work they're doing with Khan Labs, I'm like, yes, there's my first real example that I can understand and how that can be applied specifically to education. So very long answer, I'm sorry, but we're at the precipice, I think, of unlocking the creativity of developers all around the world. And our job at Microsoft, of course, is to give them the tools. Sometimes we call them the picks and the shovels. Right? We're not going to build the education solutions for the planet, but we're going to provide you with the picks and the shovels so that Worldreader can build it, so your organization can do interesting things, so Khan Academy can do interesting things.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I mean, we actually are doing similar in terms of because our organization has been more on helping to bring technology to the disadvantaged, and we work with our government to bring coding to schools, and we have now using ChatGPT to assist in terms of the technology that powers ChatGPT to build our platform called Mizora that will help the teachers while they're still learning, so that they can have this, AI teaching the kids. And we are working now playing with the languages, and because when the kids are studying in South Africa, for example, they learn in their mother tongue, and we've got 11 official languages, and we want to make sure that even those who can't speak English yet could be able to learn how to code in their own language and utilizing ChatGPT. I mean, we can't wait to share that with you.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. That's a great example. That's a great example of what I'm talking about.
My next question is really looking at Microsoft has a long history of working with nonprofits. I mean, also looking at your partnership that you have with the Schwab Foundation. I'm a proud Schwab Foundation fellow. I think most of the social entrepreneurs are. My question would be, obviously, other educational institutions to promote digital literacy, which you've already spoke about, and access to technology. How do you, I think you've answered part of this. How do you see AI fitting these efforts, and what impacts do you hope it will have in underserved communities? Because I think ChatGPT and all AI, actually a lot of the technology, they're amazing if you have access. If you have access, but underserved communities don't have access. And I just wanted to ask you, are you thinking about how do you maybe potentially having an offline ChatGPT like Scratch, for example? Is there something that you're thinking of? Because I think I'm one of those people. I call myself an optimist, but I'm also I'm also very practical. I call myself a practical optimist. As much as I hope that African kids would have access to technology, but I know reality-wise, probably my kids won't see that happening with the way things are. So how do you, as you build this technology, in terms of making sure that no child is left behind, and any brilliant child, irrespective of where they're born, should have the opportunities that a child like you and me, who have the access to resources, should have?
Yes, great questions. Thank you. Microsoft has a physical presence in something like 145 countries around the world. And again, going back to my boss, he basically has a deep belief that if any place where we have a physical presence, any place our products can be used, we need to create a local surplus in that country. We need to make that community or those communities better off for our physical presence and our products being available in those countries. So, as you can imagine, we have a bunch of pillars of investment that we do that go beyond, having our products be sold and used. And a couple of those investments, one of them involves skills. We've poured hundreds of millions of dollars into skilling people of all ages, but obviously with a focus on people who don't have access to getting skilled in technology, to show them that they can have great careers in technology, and recognizing the fact that many jobs around the world will require a technology literacy. And so skilling is a big focus of a lot of our responsibility works. The other aspect we believe deeply in, or another, is internet access. ChatGPT, the way it works, it really does need access to very, very large amounts of information, and it needs connectivity to be valuable because you need the latest data. So I don't think I see a world where there's an offline scenario for something like ChatGPT or Bing, the search engine, or the browser. So instead, we think it's very important for us to bring internet coverage or internet access to people who don't have it. And that includes, obviously people in the global south. It also includes people in rural locations. Really, believe it or not, in the United States, there's still many people in the US who don't have access to the internet. We recently announced efforts to bring internet coverage to an additional 20 million more people in the African continent through what we call our Airband initiative. And so as a company, we recognize we have a huge responsibility as a tech leader to spend money, to build partnerships with nonprofits, with governments, to solve some of these fundamental issues. And we would say access to the internet and skills, technology skills, are two that we're very, very committed to. In the global south, in every country we do business in, which these days is about 140, 145 countries. But there's no silver bullet. Like, we can't do it all. Google can't do it all. You pick any, Apple can't do it all. So it is work in progress. I think we are finding that far more people have gotten internet connectivity over the past 5 years. That'll get better over the next 5 years. But internet connectivity it's just so fundamental to a notion of equality.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the inspiring things that I found with Microsoft is your willingness to partner with everybody. I mean, that is really awesome. And I think it's, I think maybe you should drive a program similar to what, Catalyst 2030 is doing in bringing the technology companies to, invest more in developing countries as well. You've already spoken about, the amount of data that ChatGPT used, but one of the biggest criticism, or rather, I would say the fears, is that it's going to take away jobs, right? Like from journalism to content creators, and mainly in the creative industries. Like, for example, I've been bombarding my family using the Microsoft on Bing, the DALL-E. I've been just creating all sorts of monster creatures and like scary stuff and just sending to the family group, and everybody's just like, stop right now. And, but I think a lot of creatives have been talking about how it's taking their work, and creating some, do you see it as, an industry that is going to, are those jobs going to be obsolete now because of ChatGPT? Because I think that's the biggest concern many people in the creative sector has.
It's a great question. I'd say, Lindiwe, the two big concerns we hear about, and we're talking a lot about, one is disinformation, the spread of erroneous information. And the second is jobs. And, will this create jobs? Will it replace jobs? Those are the two, I would say, biggest near-term concerns that are being discussed, whether you read newspapers and journalists are writing about it, whether you go to conferences, if you were to walk the halls of Microsoft. Those I think are the two that people sort of talk about the most. Let me take the one that you asked about, which is job creation versus perhaps job replacement, automating people out of work or out of jobs. What we really firmly believe is that the way this generative AI is likely to be used is much more in a co-pilot mode and much less in a autopilot mode. So if you are, someone flying an airplane, it's great to have a co-pilot sitting next to you, helping you fly that airplane. The idea that you wouldn't have pilots and the plane would just automatically fly itself, we don't really think that's the scenario those are the scenarios we see playing out. So let me give you a nice example. There was an interesting article written in a very broadly read paper that a journalist wrote about how they're using ChatGPT today, and could they see it replacing them? And they came to the pretty quick conclusion that it couldn't replace them because it's not a human enough writer, but they were finding it incredibly helpful to help them create transitions between two paragraphs in an article they were writing, finding a word that they were struggling to get. This notion of being an amplifier, being a co-pilot, is much more what we see than we see people saying, oh my gosh, I don't need an administrative assistant anymore, or I don't need a marketing person because ChatGPT will just automatically write my websites for me. I think what you find is that marketing people, like the people on my team, are using it every single day as a big part of their job. And they're like, oh, it takes a lot of the drudgery away from my work and allows me to focus on the things that I like to focus on. But I don't ever see it kind of being able to replace the work that I do. So we've talked about these as there's a co-pilot for Word. There's a co-pilot for Excel. There's a co-pilot for PowerPoint. And I can do things like in my Microsoft Teams meeting, we use Teams, not Zoom, as you can imagine. At the end of the Teams meeting, the co-pilot says, here's a summary of the meeting. Here are the 5 things that got discussed in the meeting, and here are the 7 action items. And the co-pilot was just listening along to the meeting, capturing those things automatically, and it makes everybody's life better. But it's not putting those people in the meeting out of a job. It's just making the follow-up from the meeting much, much better. So look, time will tell. We've lived through decades where new inventions, there used to be elevator operators in elevators, right? That used to be a job. And as elevators got better, those jobs weren't needed anymore. And so will no jobs be replaced? I don't think anybody can say that. But I would say based on the quality of these generative AI products today, what we're going to see is it's going to democratize the creativity that someone like me can do with DALL-E. You mentioned DALL-E. It can generate a picture. I'm not good at drawing, but now I can actually do that without needing somebody else to draw that picture for me. So we really view it as a co-pilot, as an amplifier of what you and I can do. And there may be some functions over time that sure get automated out, but we're not seeing that as the main use case in the way we are talking with customers today.
Yeah, I mean, I think is that with every new technology, there will always be, concerns. Like I think without giving my age, television, when it came out, it was one of those things. It was like, children, now they're going to fail. Now they're going to, it was a bad thing, actually, letting your children watch TV. And even when I had my kids, I even considered taking them to a school that was against the screen, right? Because I didn't want, but later on I realized I'm not going to do that because you have to teach discipline. And with every industry, even from social media to all of that, there will be, the negative, there's always pros and cons with everything. Even cars have not necessarily replaced us walking, right? Yeah. So we still take a walk. It's not like a drive everywhere you go. But I guess, it's one of those good things. My next question to you as somebody from a developing country, Microsoft as one of the largest technology companies in the world, its reach and impact is not necessarily felt equally by everybody around the globe. Around the globe. What the company is doing to ensure that people in the global south, like myself, have access to the benefits of AI and other emerging technologies. You've already touched on that. I think for me, I'm always curious to say, because we can say, we want to make sure that we wanted to reach everybody. But what I want to know is, I'm just wanted to understand the thinking part. Are you really thinking about this more? Because I think in the global south, there's not necessarily money, right? Microsoft is a business, and whatever business, we always have to be, to understand in terms of your business is about making money. And many people in the global south are actually waiting and looking for help, right? Because they don't have access to a lot. There's a lot of lack ofs than there is, but there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of people who are passionate, people like myself, who just who don't want to leave. Like, you can't pay me to leave South Africa. I will never leave, right? I'll rather complain whatever is going wrong, but I'm not going anyway. So there's a lot of people, like myself, who will never leave and want to see the change. How do you see you supporting, people like that? And I think is one of the biggest criticism that a lot of people in the global south, I even wrote an article where I talk about tech exploitation, when I felt like, just like with the mines, you had, the colonizers coming and taking all the gold and leaving us poor. And I'm thinking, well, tech is the same thing, because the difference thing right now is that, in rich countries, you are more economically rich before you are data rich. We are data rich, but economically poor. So how are you looking in terms of, to help people out, and also make sure that the data that you get from us also benefit us as well?
Great, that's a big question. So I mentioned, the work we're doing around access, internet access. I mentioned the work we're doing around skilling. We also think it's very important for us to physically be present with Microsoft offices in many countries around the world. And that's why we are present in many countries in Africa. We recently announced, actually it was a few years ago, that we were building data centers that would serve the African continent, in the African continent. That's very important, to have that local capacity to meet the needs of customers there. Way back in 2013, we launched something called Microsoft for Africa, which is a program that essentially invests in startups, in small to medium enterprises, partnering with governments, with a focus on youth in the African continent. It's all about delivering accessible access to the internet, building a skilled workforce, and investing in local tech solutions. One of the things I love about Microsoft is we don't build all the solutions that the world needs. We're a very horizontal technology company. So everywhere we do business, partner organizations build their business on top of ours, which means there's plenty of opportunity for people. It's not like we're trying to build every solution, every application, solve every problem by every industry. We want to be a platform company. And that means building a vibrant economy built on tech with local companies in every country around the world, including Africa or the global south broadly. It's core to what our mission is. And I think that is really, really exciting. Again, no single for-profit company is going to be able to solve all of the dynamics we have in our societies around the world, but the importance of public and private partnership, the importance of taking our responsibility as a tech company very seriously, as a tech leader very seriously, is paramount to our success. We can't win as a company without us doing a good job. The last thing you mentioned that I wanted to just answer was data. Hugely important topic is privacy. And we've been big believers that for Microsoft, we believe our customers' data is their data, which means they have complete control over it. They should be able to move it away from Microsoft products to some other company's products if they want. They should be able to delete it and tell us to delete it. Putting privacy first as a principle for how we run the company is quite important. We know that companies are going to want to have AI reason over their unique data to make AI work really well for you, but no one else will get to benefit from that data except you. With the way we run our services, that data is yours. And if you point our AI technology to it, it can help you and it can't help anybody else, because we don't use that data for some other company to be able to learn from. We're not using that data to sell advertising. So I feel very happy and comfortable at night that I know our business model is not built on selling your data or profiting from your data. Our business model is built on you paying us for access to our technology while you remain 100% in control of your own data. And so that is a fundamental difference between Microsoft and some of our big competitors. We don't sell data. It's just not how our business model is constructed.
Yeah. Just to tell you on a side note, actually, our first grant for Africa Teen Geeks was from Microsoft, and we were not even registered. So I think you believe in potential. So, you know, I shared with you know, your South Africa CEO at the time that I wanted to start Africa Teen Geeks, and you know, he believed in the vision before it was even set up. So, you know, so you have good people, and your Microsoft for Africa CEO you just announced is a South African. So I'm also proud of that. South African woman, which is very important, diversity, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as AI becomes more prevalent in the workplace, there's a risk that it could, I mean, I think we spoke about this, that it could displace human workers or exacerbate existing inequalities. You know, I'll ask you about this again, because I think it's really like now being specific, not as you adding it on a question, because it's really one of the biggest criticism that AI has is what is Microsoft doing to ensure that AI is used in a way that benefits workers and promotes economic equity. Because I feel like if people don't understand it, and if government don't really understand the potential, even governments, then they could go and ban it. You know, we've seen this, we've already seen this happening in Italy, and even, you know, people themselves could start lobbying their government to say, you know what, we don't want this. And I think it's so important that in terms of, you know, communicating, as somebody who's really passionate about tech, I use AI, and my kids, I can't even imagine a world where, you know, we don't have access to technology, and just the potential of AI in making our life easy is amazing. And that's why I'm asking you this again, to say now specifically answer it.
Yeah, great. You know, again, we don't have all the answers today. We know that anytime there's a massive new tech shift, there's going to be challenges for us to learn as we go. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle, that's for sure. And so the notion that we can pretend like it doesn't exist or we can stop, it's a little like you said with television. It's like, well, really what the important thing to do is to make sure that these tools are used for good, not for bad. And we think legislation is going to play an important role. We think that governments and companies need to work together to come up with the right regulatory approach to safeguard against disinformation, to make sure that these things can't be weaponized in ways that will be destructive to society. And so the idea that you can just invent a piece of tech and everything will be fine is foolhardy. We know this. We know this from human history. Every single invention we've ever made can be used for good, it can be used for bad. And one of my peers at Microsoft, a wonderful man named Brad Smith, wrote a book not too long ago called Tools and Weapons. And it literally talks about
book, and I got him to sign it for my daughter in Davos. I'm just bragging here, yeah.
But it's a beautiful book because it asks these fundamental questions, and you quickly realize, oh, we need to put in place regulatory constraints. We need to put in place things that will, and many governments around the world are looking at this. The EU is probably the most advanced in how they're thinking about categorizing different types of use cases for AI. And if there are use cases that are very high risk, then those organizations would have to go through certain hurdles before they'd be able to use AI for those use cases. If you're talking about summarizing a meeting and sending out the action items, that's probably a very low risk case for disinformation and that sort of thing. So I think it's really important that we continue to ask the hard questions, but the ultimate answer is going to be a combination of private and public and government collaboration to create the rules of the road for the use of this technology so that it's positive for society instead of negative. And that, I think, is, you're seeing that consternation every single day. But
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how fast the EU has worked to come up with a particular set of thoughts around how to legislate or regulate. And it's been, governments are supposed to be quite slow, right? They're supposed to be way behind. And yet
Yeah.
ChatGPT is only whatever, 90 days old, 120 days old, whatever it is. And governments are moving relatively quickly. So again, I tend to be an optimist. I can tell you that the very first product that we created that had AI in it, of this type of AI, was something called Copilot for a product called GitHub. And GitHub is a tool that developers use. And as you start writing your code, Copilot essentially says, oh, it looks like you're trying to write code that does the following. Would you like this code for that? And it suggests a bunch of code for you. And the developer could say, yes, that's exactly the code that I want. And then the developer goes in and edits the code. What we're hearing from developers is that very large percentages of the code that they're now writing is being automatically suggested by the Copilot. And they're telling us that they like writing code more now than they did before. They're more productive now than they were before. They get to work on the harder, fun problems, and they don't have to do some of the drudgery. And so I look at that and I'm like, wow, for people who are fearful of this, is going to be a huge productivity boon for developers. There's no doubt that the upsides are phenomenal. You talk to cancer researchers who are using some of this technology to detect cancer in a much more automated, much quicker way. It's not replacing the oncologist who has to decide whether or not a patient has cancer. It's an incredible co-pilot for that doctor, for that oncologist. So there's no doubt we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot to figure out. But I think the good news is humanity is a lot smarter than we were. Regulators are a lot smarter than they were. Tech companies are a lot smarter than they were. And I remain optimistic that this will be mostly very, very positive for the world.
Yeah, I mean, and regulation should follow innovation, right? And that's the way it should happen. And I always say to people, like, I mean, I think as you can tell, I'm pro ChatGPT, I'm pro AI, but I was like, there's no way it can replace a human because it works on what has already happened. It's like an economist; they're really good to tell you about why the market crashed than to actually tell you it's gonna crash. They're not very good at, and I think that's how I see it. It's like, you know what, look at it as economists. A very good economist will really give you a reason why in 2008-9 we had the problems we had in the world, but they're not going to foresee what's going to happen. And I think that's really what it is. But I mean, thank you so much. So I've got one final question because we are definitely out of time. But what I wanted just to ask you, because is just something that is also, I want to hear the answer from you too, is how do you see the biggest opportunities and challenges facing the technology industry in the coming years? And how do you think AI can play a role in addressing these issues?
Boy, I think we've covered a lot of it today. It's an exciting new era. There's no doubt about it. And anytime there's an invention of a new tech platform or a shift in the tech platform, it's an opportunity for incredible creativity, for building new things, for deploying new things, for getting new solutions into the hands of people who will do incredibly creative things with them. If we could imagine all of the challenges that a new tech platform would bring, we could fix them before the tech platform was available. But the reality is, the way technology works is the inventors of it never can imagine where the human beings of the world will take it. And so it's one thing to bring this technology out, but when I talk to Worldreader, and Worldreader says, oh my gosh, we've been talking about ChatGPT, we think that we can have kids write their own books as part of our digital app. And imagine if kids could write their own books after they finished a book and they didn't like the ending and they want to write their own ending, but we can actually build. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that's an amazing thing. So for me, it's a time of incredible creativity. And we'll have to figure out as we go the problems that creativity brings and the solutions we'll need to bring to bear. But boy, I'm much more excited about coming to work every day today than I was just 5 years ago. And I was pretty excited about coming to work 5 years ago. And so hopefully, hopefully people can harness this tech for good and help us make sure that people use it as a tool and minimize the times that people use it as a weapon.
Thank you so much. I can't begin to thank you for your time and especially, under the circumstances, and also for Microsoft. I mean, I think, as I said, as a Schwabi, and for me, I'm all very excited to see that you're working with the World Economic Forum and Schwab, because that's really where you can work with decision makers and making sure that every country, small, big or small, has a platform and has a voice and can be supported. Thank you. And I'm looking forward one day to having coffee with you for a longer time without Colin, looking at me saying, stop it now. Thank you.
Lindiwe, thank you so much. Thank you, Colin.
No, absolute pleasure. And like somebody said on the chat, it was just great to see you two interacting there. Absolutely. One question though, Chris. This is a network of social innovators. What message would you say for this network we should embrace thinking about the next 6 months, 12 months, 4 months around ChatGPT?
Well, I would say the most obvious thing to do is to experiment and to play. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to see the demo and then think, oh my gosh, I got it. That's not really how innovation and invention works. So experimenting, brainstorming, collaborating with other partners who have done things already. I would say get the thinking caps on and don't be afraid to not know the answer. I think the first 500 apps that were built for the smartphone were pretty uninteresting apps because developers hadn't really figured out what is unique about a smartphone. It's not like Uber was invented, overnight. It took years for people to kind of figure out, oh, I finally get it. So don't be afraid to build bad stuff. It's okay, it's relatively cheap. And maybe the Worldreader's idea of having kids write their own stories isn't interesting to kids. And okay, let's try it, see what happens. And maybe they like doing something else. So I would say be bold and don't be afraid to write a bunch of dumb things, because the opportunity will become clearer the more you get into it. I guess that's the advice I'd have. That's
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Chris, really mean it. Thank you for your candidness around areas of concern that people have. And that's really good to get them out there. But more than anything, just thanks for being you. Your energy this morning is incredible. I'd like to see when you've got the medicine out of your system. That's that's quite an amazing session. Really, really.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Before you go, I just noticed there's a very important question on my WhatsApp from Jeru, who's one of the founder of Catalyst. So it's very, I cannot not ask you. He said I must ask you, how can you help Catalyst members and Catalyst? So he said, she said I must ask you that, and I thought just before you go, I just checked my phone now because I was so talking to you, so excited I didn't see. But she's like, please ask him.
What's the question, Lindiwe?
Is how can you help Catalyst members and Catalyst, the organization that is putting together the session today?
Oh, well, hopefully, obviously, my presence here shows my interest in the organization and our desire to be a great partner to organizations like this. I'm more than happy to follow up with Colin or with whoever's asking the question to see what else there is that we could potentially do. The number one thing I think I could do is to provide great technology to you, and that's a low cost, low friction way to say, everyone who's part of Catalyst 2030, I want to empower you to achieve whatever your goals are through GitHub Copilot, Word Copilot, through Bing, through Edge. The most important thing Microsoft does is to build technology that other people can build on top of. So anything in addition to that is gravy, but don't undervalue or don't underestimate how impactful our tech can be for your organizations.
Thanks, Chris. Absolute brilliant answer. Thank you, Lindiwe. I'm going to move on right now. I'm going to invite Abhijit to tell us a little bit about how we're applying ChatGPT to Catalyst and Catalyst assets.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. It's glad to be here and wonderful session. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Lina. So, yep, I think we already discussed in terms of how ChatGPT can be used, and just discussing a couple of things is how nonprofits can potentially leverage this. Is like through all of these initiatives, like it helps you create wonderful awareness campaigns, the outreach, build learning and training content, along with using chatbots, writing proposals. And I think that's something interesting that's coming up. And obviously writing phenomenal copywriting, like it can be a co-pilot for you as shared. If you move on, and here's something that Catalyst is currently building, is using ChatGPT on our knowledge portal, that is the Social Change Innovators, and I believe Debbie is also part of the call today. So I would love for all of the attendees to pull out their phones and scan this QR code. I think we're facing a little bit of trouble in, yeah, thank you very much. So you can scan this, and this opens up a WhatsApp window where you can now go forward and ask Catalyst questions. So what we did is, moving on to the next slide, is we trained ChatGPT on a custom source of information and leveraged that to provide answers. And that's how I think organizations can also use it. Like there have been several interesting use cases, and we want to help Catalyst members take benefit of this. And moving out of all of these, there's so many documents, videos, knowledge material that's out there. So all of that becomes very simple to be accessed now over a WhatsApp window, and soon it will be part of the Catalyst website as well, where now once you sign up as a member, you can ask these questions and it can find you the right set of information. And I think one thing that we want to build and enable for all the Catalyst members is key challenge is how to write proposals, right? And I think that's exactly where we want to build the next level of leveraging ChatGPT for Catalyst members, and make this entire process much more simpler. Moving on. While all of this was going on, I thought, what could be the future of social impact? And I thought, what better way than to ask ChatGPT? And this is where we see some of these applications, and I think it has been very well put across by our panelists today. Right from healthcare, education, environment, community, economic development, all of these domains are possible. And this is the AI, and thanks to the team that has built it, and Microsoft making it accessible to all of us. Moving on, how are we using something like this? At Ekatra, we use this to provide the quality education to the next billion, and I think I'm super impressed and empowered by how Kanmigo is being built, and that's something that we want to do it as well, like using multilingual micro-learning applications on messaging apps. And something that I envision or building is GPT-powered tutors, and as was shared by our panelists today. And what you see on the screen is a very interesting application where we were able to generate an entire course purely out of AI. So it helps content creators enhance the way that they teach and take learning to the next level. Now, how can you contribute? Moving on to the next slide. I would like to invite all of you to towards this focus group where we as Catalyst members are building AI for the social good, and we want to brainstorm. The first step in this is obviously, if you're not please do sign up and become a Catalyst 2030 member. We'd love to have you as part of this community. And this focus group would want to contribute to solutions that positively impact the global South. Think of ideas, come up with solutions, and share best practices. And I think one of the key thoughts was also, can we discuss these ethical considerations that come while we build these AI applications? And definitely, I think one of the most important benefit of being part of this group would be to meet with each other and enhance our knowledge. Again, like this is, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, and that's my QR code. With that, I would say thank you very much. And that's, I would encourage all of you to be part of Catalyst and use the service that we have built for you.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm supposed to use the last 30 seconds, and we're kind of on time, just 1 minute over, to sell you Catalyst, if you like, and to give you links. I don't think I have to, right? What you've just seen over the last 60 minutes is absolutely amazing. It's one of a number of great, inspirational, informative sessions that we've seen this week. If you want to join, if you're not a member and you want to join, go there. You'll see the website there. If you are a member and you think you can collaborate more and you can give more, you can put more in as well, you're going to get a lot more out. And that's what the essence of this network is. It's about collaboration. It's about sharing. And lastly, we want to hear from you in whatever shape or form you want to do that, but get onto social media and give us some feedback about what you've seen in this session today. Again, thank you to Lindiwe and to Chris. Amazing. Couldn't have gone better. And the candidness and honesty and the hard questions that you put, Lindiwe. Thank you to everybody. See you soon.